Hello everyone, I am Nolana Lynch, one of the 2025-2026 ambassadors for Archer and Olive. In today's video, I'll be sharing how I use the Songbird Planner for my 2026 weekly journaling. I'll be setting up a goal setting page for the first quarter of the year, and I'm really excited to share with you my project today. You can use code NOLANA10 for 10% off all items in the Archer and Olive shop, and head on over to the blog to get all the supplies that I've used and more details about the project, as well as still images. I can't wait to share with you the process of setting it all up, so let's head into today's video.
So I kick things off by opening up the Soft Nature collage pad. This is such a beautiful pad. There are lots of soft green tones and whatnot, so it's perfect for January and goal setting and all the fresh start vibes. And then I also use the planner stickers from Soft Nature. The color scheme is exactly what I need, and I use the collage pad as a jumping off point for this. I post some of the colors as well in the calligraphs that I thought would look great, and I'm just also opening up these other stickers, which are also lovely. They have quite a lot of really beautiful sayings, and they're gold foil, so it's very stunning. And I'm also using the alphabet stickers from the Soft Nature release as well. So now that I have all these things out, I have a clear color scheme in mind for this, and also kind of like a mental mood board of what I'd like it to look like, you know, fresh, clean, gentle, soft. So I love this paper, and I'm gonna use that as a base to create a pocket. I have some dies here that I am using. They are pocket dies and perfect to create a cute little pocket for some beautiful tags or library cards, if you may. I pulled these washi tapes because they all match the theme as well. Some are from Swallow, some are from Snowdrop, and some are from Bookshelf or Storybook washi tape set. So these are all beautiful as well. This one is a green gold kind of vintage, I think it's not Victorian, is it? Anyway, but I just love it. And this one is a nice taupe with white and some gold dots as well. I wasn't going to hide it, but then I thought it looked really nice layered, so I'm popping that on as well. And then this dark green with the gold print, I thought was really beautiful for this layout. So very rich tones with these washi tape sets from Archer and Olive. I quite love them, and I also love these sizes because, you know, we got a variety of sizes, which is perfect for layering washi. So now I am going to just use my die cutting machine and cut this pocket out. I mean, there are so many ways that we can use a pocket. You can simply use a paper trimmer. You can use a pair of scissors. You may use a punch board. There are quite a number of options. You can use a digital die cutting machine as well. So just popping that through. This is my first ever manual die cutting machine. I've had it for years and I still use it. It still works really well. So please, if you check out the blog post, you get all the details of the supplies that I've used for this layout, and I'll also link all of the supplies and tools that I've used, so that would be helpful. So yeah, I'm just gonna fold this back and create my pocket. And once I have that created, I can position it onto the layout for my goal setting page in my planner. So once I've folded all three edges, I go in now and find some of my double-sided tape, and I apply it to each corner or flap on the page. And this is quite one of my favorite adhesives to add, because it is quite easy to use. It's one of my favorites because you can also easily tear it off. But in this situation, I want a neat edge because of the fact that it's exact, the exact width of the double-sided adhesive, and so I'm just making sure that it's more precise. So we have that laid off on our pocket, and now we can go ahead and add it to the planner. So I'm already loving how it looks with the layering and whatnot, and I can't wait to see the completed project. Very exciting. So I'm just using my tweezers to pull up the white paper portion off of the double-sided tape, and I'm also making sure it stays, kind of folded down and neat as well in the process. This is sometimes a bit tricky, so I am all just taking my time with it. And also, I think because it was quite exact, there was a portion that kind of overlapped. So I'm just kind of going in a bit with it and trying to lift it off, and then I usually fold back any excess, so that it won't have a tacky edge when I'm sticking it down. So just positioning it and determining where I'd like it to go. And I kind of like it a bit overlaid on the washi. So this looks quite cute. I'm liking how it looks. Then I go through and I pull out some of the papers that can be used for tuck-in cards. So the idea here is to produce 3 journal cards where you can write your goals in for January, February, and March. So it's like a quarterly planning segment in your planner. And it serves a reminder. So you may also just pull the cards out. So when you're doing like your monthly view or your weekly portions or setups in your planner, you can always add in, what the goals are, how that's going, if you're using this as a journal, how the process has been so far. So I'm cutting this down using the paper cutter, very smooth to use. And then I'm just tucking it in to make sure that the height fits quite well, and it does. And so I love these beautiful subtle prints. I felt like they were perfect for this project, and these are what they look like. And so I'm loving how they look staggered. They fit very well, and that's all. I didn't have to, trim too much, just one line across each of them, and that was it. And so I have decided that I'm going to use a mix of these stickers on here to create a journal card. But what I'm also thinking about is how I'd love it to look overall. And I've decided to use a stamp set. And once I'm using this library card stamp set, I am embossing it. So I'm adding some embossing ink or watermark ink onto the 3x4. Now it's an exact stamp, so it's very tricky to get it flush onto the paper. But what I realized after doing it the first time, because in this case I tried to make sure that there was enough space on the top, but really and truly lining it up from the base was most helpful in this situation. So I'm pouring some gold embossing powder over it, and this is where I could see where the stamp lined up, and it was a bit low. I mean, it's still fine, and it did give a nice kind of vintage mark or vintage kind of theme style on the paper. But because it was a bit off, I decided to also do an extra one. So this is the initial one, and I'm just going to use my paintbrush to dust off some of the excess powder off of the sides and the center. What I usually use is a static brush. So I would probably link that as well, just so that it prevents extra embossing powder from sticking in the parts within the stamp or outside of the stamping image. So that's pretty helpful when embossing. I flicked it over and nothing happened, thankfully. And I still go ahead and I heat this up. This is a dual speed heat gun, so it heats things up and embosses the paper quite quickly. So just going through that, and it takes a little while, and so I will come back and show you the completed image. Okay, so I decided to just stay on and show you how it's changing now. You can see it heating up. I usually say stay about 6 centimeters away from the paper when you're embossing. So if you are new to embossing, I just thought I'd share a few of my embossing tips. It's something that I love doing. I love the effect of just this kind of gold plated or gilded section in my journaling and my layouts. I usually do clean presses, but this is what it looks like. And then I also have a matching die for this to cut it down to size. So I'm just showing you this tool that I use. It helps to get a clean impression of the stamp on the paper. And so look at the difference this time. I didn't use a static pouch yet, but because I used that stamping tool to press it down and I add the embossing powder, you'll see that the impression is much cleaner, and so I really appreciate that. So I didn't even need to use a static brush this time around. I also like having a piece of copy paper which I fold into prior to embossing, and it creates a little dome to pour the excess embossing powder back into it. And so that was just embossed, and then I'm going to show you how I use a die cutting machine to just go in and bring this down to the exact size. You can also use your paper trimmer for this, but I preferred using the die simply because just in case the image was a bit slanted, a die like this would make sure that all of the edges kind of came out flush and clean and the specific size and dimensions that is needed. So I am just gonna do that and keep things simple. So passing it through, and I love how this turned out. It's stunning. So these are my first two, and then this is my third one, and I'm just going to cut this one down to size as well. I use the same washi tape for all three, so that's usually quite handy when using my die cutting machine. If you are new to die cutting, it's quite a beautiful little tool. And so I'm just going to use some of these stickers from the Snowdrops collection. This is what it looks like. Here is the embossed cards. I'm very much pleased with the results. So I'm just going to add these slanted snowdrop stickers into position. I'm just moving around and playing with it to see where I like it best. And then I'm going to use these alphas to write in January. And I decide to start with the N first, since I'm doing it on the right hand side of the page. So I'm doing N-A-J, and if I were doing it in the center of the page, I would start with the middle letter first, just to make sure that it is centered. So that's what I enjoy doing. I'd love to know in the comments below, how do you line your letters up and whatnot when you're doing your layouts? And so for this one that says important, I am just trimming off the edge here. I like how it looks going straight to the end of the card versus inside the library card border. And then I'm just cutting off some excess from the inside. So once that's done, I go in and I also pull out a quote from this sheet. Lots of lovely quotes in there. So very hard to choose. And then I am simply laying down this quote, and I love how it looks. We have all three of them here. We have January, February, March. Kept it similar in theme, same but slightly different. I'm just gonna pop them in and stagger them a bit. And so this would be perfect just as is if you wanted to leave it that way, but I decided that I want to add some ribbon, and this ended up being a bit trickier than I thought it would be, so I'm just going to show you what I ended up doing in the end. So I take 3 pieces of the ribbon. I have 2 which are a bit wider. I cut this down to size, and I'm tucking both edges into just under the pocket. So the adhesive that's under the both sides of the pocket, it seals down the ribbon which is below, but I do add some extra adhesive to the ribbon on top so that it will adhere to the paper, the dot grid paper of the notebook. So I'm just going to wrap that around and try to remove the backing as well, which is a bit tricky because it's such a small fiddly piece of ribbon. And so I'm simply trying to do that for both sides, because the satin ribbon below, which is a kind of antique gold stock, but the one on top is just kind of like a braided or sheerish mesh ribbon, and so I'm just pulling off the backing here again and going to tuck it underneath gently and lay it down. This is a bit of a fiddly process, to be honest. I quite like how it looks in the end, and I feel like it finishes off the project really well. So I'm really happy that I did it. But just be mindful to take your time through it all. And I guess something that I would have done beforehand would be, before sticking the pocket down, adhering the ribbon to the back flaps of the pocket and then sticking it to the paper. So in retrospect, that's what I would have done. So going through now and simply tucking the satin part bit gently but firmly, and then just making sure everything stays nice and flush here. And once I have done that, I am going to do the same for the other piece of double-sided tape. I'm going to simply pop that under, fold it under like so, and then I have it nice and flush, and we have our pocket. So now I'm still deciding to add an extra piece of thin kind of jute twine. This is one of my favorite twines to use in projects, and I'm thinking that I'm going to use one of these, 2 of these quote stickers as little flags on the twine. So to do that, instead of removing the sticker and adding it to cardstock, I decide to simply cut it off with the backing and then punching a hole through it to make it into a little flag. And thankfully, I like 2 of the quotes that are next to each other and on the edge of the sticker sheet, so that works out beautifully. So just gently and carefully cutting through that sheet of stickers, and then passing the thin twine underneath the ribbon that's there, and I am simply going to tie it into a knot. And once I've tied it into a knot, to tuck it under, and I'm adding equal amounts of twine on both sides of the pocket. And so once that's tucked in nice and neatly, I can then cut this down and tie a nice knot here, and then add in my two little coats onto the twine. And I quite like how that turned out as well. So just pressing it down and smoothing it, I feel like I knotted it and it felt a little bit bulky at first, but once I pressed down on the pocket to smooth it, it was actually perfect. So just a reminder to just, check the pocket sides and the center and make sure that it's all great. So this is the tie, and then I'm using the smallest hole in my multi-punch, and I'm going to just punch that there. And so this is one of my favorite tools. I use it all the time. It's so perfect for everything. So just gonna pass that through the twine quickly, the larger one below and the smaller one on top, and then I'm going to knot it. So just being careful. It actually was quite easier than I thought because the twine is very fine, so it was very easy to push through without tweezers or anything at all. That was quite shocking for me. And then I'm just gonna tie this quickly and do a double knot here as well. So smoothing it down again. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. It's not great. There's no issues. It's not bulging. It's perfect. Just kind of, yep. Love it. So I'm gonna tie off the excess, and we are now going to add in a few other details before we finish off this project. So I have my 3 cards. I can pop these in. I love how they look staggered, and I am deciding that I want to put the label 2026 goals onto the pocket, but I'm thinking through what exactly I want to do. And I land on this label stamp because I was thinking of doing a label or something so that the words 2026 will pop a bit more off of the background, because the background is patterned, and so that could sometimes pull away from the title. And so I land on this, and I'm going to bold emboss it to keep the theme of bold embossing through. Love how it looks. Cut it down. And I also have a die that is to cut it down, but I'm heating it first. Now what happens though is I am heating this. I find that the print is a bit light, to be honest, on the top and bottom, but it still ends up embossing quite well. So I'm just going over that quickly, and then I'll show you the finished result. At this point, the heat gun would be, a bit warm from doing a few other elements in this project, and I find that it embosses quicker, after it's warmed up and been used a few times as well. So that's always handy. And then I have this die here, so I'm just gonna pop it through my die cutting machine and finish this project off. So gonna use my handy dandy washi tape to do this, and I am doing it on the top and base because there's some extra paper there, and just lining that up as well so that you don't cut into the label accidentally. So just making sure that it's centered, and once that's centered and through, I'm simply gonna pop this die cutting machine onto the table and passing this die through. And so loving how, the elements are coming together. And I end up as well just having to do this over because, yes, I centered it, but then because the numbers are different widths slightly, ended up too far to the right. And when I pulled these numbers off, they were a bit, they're so sticky it ripped the label. Now, I'm looking at this and I quite like how it looks kind of staggered. But I guess at the time I wanted it to be straight. And so in pulling this up like this, I do tear the paper. And so I did it over on one of the collage paper pads and I love it. And then I'm going to write goals in using the letters from the sticker sheet. So we're starting from the center because I want this word centered as well. And then moving from to the right and then moving to the left. And so we'll have the 2026 goals. And once I adhere this down, this will be the end of our project. So please head on over to the Arch and Olive blog to get still photos, links to everything that I've used. I'd love to know if you're going to try this project in your planner for 2026. It's such a beautiful way to keep your goals centered in one place throughout your planner. I'm so grateful that you've been here. Please subscribe to the Arch and Olive channel so that you can access all the latest tutorials and videos as they are released. And also you'll see all the new releases here first. So once again, I am Nolana Lynch, 2025-2026 ambassador for Archer and Olive. I'm so grateful to be here and see you in the next video.